Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth YouTube exclusive, the audio recordings from when Blackwater was a home game. Now, these were recorded a day or two after sessions and were full of details we didn't capture at Chatwater. When I recorded these, though, I recorded them on my phone, usually in my car or in my house trying to be quiet, so the quality's not the best. But it's worth a listen to if you want to keep going on the deep dive into the story of your favorite adventuring party. This covers the sessions of the Vel Soom Arc up until our audio-only episode here on YouTube, episode 0, A Sister's Sacrifice, and then every other episode is in full video up here on YouTube as well. So turn this on while you drive, cook, clean, work, or whatever your day holds. Sit back, relax, and welcome to the Blackwater Audio Archives, the Vel Soom Arc.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to your episode 67 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater. Session date happening February 16th, 2020. In-game date being the morning of the 5th of Elamine and ending on about the 17th of Elamine. And the title of this episode is called The Last Watch. Okay, so we open on the night of the 4th of Elamine, which is actually while everyone was off drinking with Bix and Letters in the Blackwater Tavern, kind of celebrating their last night in Wolfrain before they go off towards the Expanse. Neppy slipped away and spent some time in her temple. She cast Commune after some rituals to check in on what was going on in the Forgotten Expanse, and she asked her goddess if the seal was safe in the Forgotten Expanse, and it was, but her goddess didn't answer the second round of questions, which can happen when casting Commune twice in a row. She also had softly give her a totem of the Raven Queen, which was like some feathers and a claw and a foot of what looks like to be from the Raven Queen, which was at the temple of Nebthisaket that in Wolfrain that was softly had been keeping safe. So the next morning we leave and we bounce to the plane of air. Spooky and Letters go to the library, and Spooky keeps on reading about the Dawn War, and finds a book on that. And Letters finds a book on drumming. Actually, he finds a book on drum circles, and like air, music of the air elemental plane. Sorry, baby's just rolling around here. Okay, I think she's back down. Callie goes to find someone to teach her cool flying tricks with her wings. So she meets Klek, who is an older Aarakocra, who is looks like a macaw, kind of like a parrot. He teaches her a nosedive and a barrel roll, which she nails. He teaches her like flipping over the top of a ranged spear or javelin attack, which she does okay at, and then a gliding stop, which she biffs the first time and then scrambles to kind of get the second time. And so she continues her training. Finnan does a bunch of push-ups and then finds Ari, who is a hawk Aarakocra who's training some of the recruits, or like acolytes in sparring, and he fights 2 Aarakocra and manages to do pretty well, so they allow him to train with them. We also find out that Spooky can't unattune to her pants, but can take them off, so she can't unattune to them, which is interesting. They're not cursed anymore. She can take them off, which is good. Neppy and Kokanee sit and throw rocks over the edge of the kind of one of the steps of the earth or the air elemental plane on the Temple of the Winged Serpent on the island that it's on, just chatting, and that's how they spend their day. So we rest, and then Spooky attunes to the talisman. So Spooky attunes to the talisman. Sorry, I realized that I'd written a day wrong in my notes. Spooky attunes to the talisman, and we pop in to Ice Meet, where she had been before. We arrive behind the Ice Drift Inn with the proprietor named Lundic Hammerclam. Here, Spooky's known as Pup. So the inn faces the water, and there's kind of a port built out kind of out over into the water that before leading onto the open ocean, and we kind of mull over what to do and how to get there. So we decide to go inside the bar. We meet Lundic Hammerclam. He's a dwarf. He's got a gray braided beard, and he recognized Spooky, and she's just immediately just starts bar backing and bartending right away. Around the bar is a clientele of dwarves and Goliaths and halflings. Callie and Finnan drink hammerclams. It's basically potent moonshine. It cures Callie's hangover, and Finnan is just wicked drunk. So in the corner of the bar, we also see a white dragonborn with a scar across her head, having subdued conversation, and we find out that this is Captain Des. She runs a cargo ship with a crew about 30. She's one of the best captains around, and she's usually up for a challenge. Over in the wall near the bar, there's a man with a red beard. Kind of his clothes are sticking out, and he's got a feather in his cap telling a tale of something he likely didn't do. And this is Captain Crowley. He's got a boat and crew of about 35. And he's definitely in it for the glory. And then someone who walks through the door, a light blue skin, a water genasi, and this is Cordelia Shade. She's a newer captain, smaller ship, and she's quite ambitious. So to inquire about a boat, we walk over to Cordelia. We manage to negotiate asking for trade contracts with Wolfrine. Which we cast sending to Kamea, and she reluctantly agrees, even though she doesn't really know what we're doing. And we pay Cordelia her fee of 750 gold pieces, which she asks for, totally fine. And then she sends us to go meet with Terry, her first mate. The ship is called the Nightshade. So we head down to the boat, and we meet a gnome ranger who looks very intent and purposed. He has 2 flails. He's kind of an inverse mohawk of curly hair, and he identifies himself as Ectarius, and he is the first mate. And his name is Terry, and his goal is to take on an ocean beast and best it. He was the best fighter from his village, and an insight check revealed that he was absolutely the best fighter from his village, but there's definitely not a lot of people in his village. So the trek will take 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the weather, before we even reach the fog bank, which basically encapsulates what's left of the. Oh, I'm sorry. A yawn for the Forgotten Expanse. And then we may see frost giants on the way. So we get on the boat and we set sail with our provisions. The first week goes by quietly as we move down the coast. We see 2 to 3 of the Sisters Mountains as we start sailing north, pockets of forest and rolling hills. After about a week, during midday, we see some blue skin giants, which we're assuming are frost giants, throwing rocks at the boat. One hits the boat. Spooky shoots a fireball at them to kind of scare them off, and we manage to steer out of the way. Kokanee helps repair the ship, and then we head out away from the coast into the open ocean. About a week and a half later, a week and a half after we set sail, so like after about a week, we begin to see the fog bank covering most of the horizon. We see a small island, though, on its way. It's like rocky, some jagged rocks about 2 to 5 kilometers away. There's a stone structure that seems to be somewhat collapsed and covered with debris. And we think this to be Sister's Watch. We're sailing over, and Clack and Clack is on deck, and he's nervous about because he can't swim, and Spooky and Terry are chatting a bit because they're both gnomes and they're just kind of getting to know each other, and Clack is unfathomably jealous. He's very jealous of this entire interaction. So we go closer to the shore of Sister's Watch, and we prepare to walk to the shore. Nippy casts Water Walk on all of us, and Clack and Letters stay on the boat, and the rest of us walk over to Sister's Watch. There's lots of shipwrecks dotting their way through the water as we walk past, and we climb up, onto the rocks. Neppy struggles a bit because she's in heavy armor, but they managed to get her up there because, couldn't leave a girl struggle. So there's a 3-story broken tower that kind of continues down a floor downstairs. Finnan looks through the wall and sees a partially buried chamber and a hatch to a chamber below. Terry climbs up to the window to try and push the debris open. Finnan gives him a hand. There's this brass hatch that we see there with a symbol of Arathis, and Finnan looks through and sees this remnants of a workshop. So we all climb up and manage to get ourselves inside, figuring out that, yes, this was Sister's Watch, which was an old Caraxian outpost. So we're eager to go inside and take a look. As we get inside, Kokanee prays, and there's the warmth in his chest knowing... he puts his hand on the plate, the brass plate, to help get it open, and the plate is cold, but his hand catches and a notch opens, and he lifts it open. Finnan, scouts ahead and drops down, and below the stairs is half submerged. On one side of the room, there's a workshop with a rusted table and tools, and it seems there to be parts of a construct that are half complete. We all jump down. Kokanee takes a look around, and he's familiar with the tools but unsure of what they were building. He notices the desk. There's a small box under it. Kokanee picks the lock, which is really slow and complex. Has to make a con save, but he makes it, I think. And then there's a steel circlet inside, and he takes both the box and the circlet. Spooky notices that the water... The stairs are covered with water and debris, fills in for about 15 feet, and then down to the bottom. Spookiny molds earth, and Callie clears, and so Finnan is actually able to swim down to the lower chamber. The hallway goes about 30 to 40 feet and then opens into a larger chamber. Large double doors caved in with debris, overturned tables, and scattered weaponry, and they see a figure amongst the tables. Finnan goes back and gets Callie. Callie goes down, and Spooky joins them, and there's a body of actually a warforged. The shoulder is melted, and so is the face, rusted and sunken under the water as they're all swimming there. Hold on one sec. Minx is being an asshole and scratching at the door. A proven fact that Minx is the worst. Okay, I think we were just talking about the warforged. Yeah, that's right. And the shoulder is melted, the face is melted, and there's a broken kind of claymore sword next to it. They bring both back up, and Spooky is able to reduce the size of the warforged to get it through the debris. Once it's up, Kokanee starts investigating the warforged. This arm is melted from heat. And here he sees like a smaller bowl made of bone. There's remnants of ash in it and incense. He asks Neppy what it is, and we see like a faint divination echo. It's for ritual of some kind. The claymore sword on the hilt is the symbol of Arathis, but it's just a broken sword. It doesn't look special in any way. Callie and Finnan and Spooky go back down, and Finnan goes to those big doors. He opens one and hears a click. He has to make 3 dex saves, not death saves, and there's 3 small ballistas that fire at him. The oaken bolters, there's a shockwave underwater that we feel above, and there's fire damage. And so the tunnel starts collapsing. Terry starts clearing the tunnel from above. Spooky's alter self that she had cast to make her skin, or to give herself gills so she could swim, fails. Callie passes her the breathing mask so she can recast alter self, which she does before Spooky starts to drown. So they swim back. Spooky tries to mold earth to preserve the structural integrity of the tunnel as they're climbing through, and then we end up reconvening. Finnan was able to collect some of the bones of some of the people who were on the oaken bolters, but they kind of collapse or they disintegrate as he brings them up out of the water, and so Kokanee lays them to rest and prays for them. So as we begin to walk back on the water, back towards the Nightshade, the ship, we note Finnan and Neppy notice some movement, and these tentacled creatures coming out of the water, and then we end up fighting. So we fight some deep scions, and Finnan is able to cast Bane. Spooky gets some good hits in with the Toll the Dead. Terry clocks a natural 20 on them, doing really well. And just like a lot of really good things happen to allow us to kill the scions pretty quickly in just 1.5 rounds. We head back towards the ship. There were several other scions that attacked the ship. Letters and Clack on the boat, cleaning off themselves, Letters, horns, all of that kind of stuff, to show that they were victorious in battle. Clack gives the sash of Fair Winds, which he had been holding for Spooky, back, and we're about 2 to 4 days away from the Forgotten Expanse itself. Closer, there's a little bit of island with some partially covered area that we are looking for. So we sail towards the larger fog bank, and Sister's Watch fades into the distance. Wow, you can tell it's been a long day. I cannot speak this evening. But yeah, that is it. I will be uploading episode 68 shortly, since I'm 1 week behind, and I will do the rest of the kind of any like questions or theories that I have at the end of that one rather than this one. So thanks, guys. Hello everyone, welcome to your episode 68 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater, session date occurring February 21st, 2020. In-game date starting the 17th of Elamine and ending midday on the 24th of Elamine, so encompassing about a 1-week period. The title of this episode, When Death Stares Back. Okay, so we chat with Captain Cordelia Shade, and she estimates that we've got about 3 to 4 days to get to the fog bank, or to get to the fog bank, or like inside the fog bank, our way through it, she estimates. So Finnan talks with Kokanee and asks him to help train him without goggles, so do some training exercises, just like fighting, just so that he can try and get better at being blind and not needing his goggles so much to needing to rely on them. And they kind of do that, however that works out. Neppy and Callie keep some watch. There's some marine life around Sister's Watch, but as they get close to the fog, it becomes too quiet. There's no noise, there's no marine life, nothing around. During the couple days, Neppy scries on Cora and doesn't find anything. No, it's just, Cora's not on this plane. And she also scries on Volketh, and it doesn't take, so assuming that he saved against the scry. And then she scries on Alamir, Buckwild, Kokanee's father, which works. So her vision tunnels to a pinpoint of a dense forest and a clearing of a town. Her vision flashes again as he walks through an abandoned building. There's a defaced statue as he leans on it, and it falls over, and he realizes that this is an abandoned temple of Pelor, one that we've been to actually, in Toren. So we've been in this temple before. He kicks away some dirt and finds a plate on the floor, laying his hands on it, and he shatters the plate. He pulls out a small box, the box itself having a symbol of Moradin on it. He lays the box on the ground, and the pulse radiates out and shoots him across the room as he tries to open it. It like knocks him back against the wall. He steps over a dead body that someone he had looks like he just recently killed, with gray skin, with vague faded tattoos, and Neppy recognizes this as Hedgehog, the Goliath fighter barbarian that we met in our very, very, very first episode of Blackwater. Well, before we were Blackwater, when we all met at the temple or the tavern in Toren. Spooky held quite a kinship with Hedgehog, and he was dead there. Alamir then pulls out some chalk, and he starts to circle the box in chalk to send it back, and he completes it. It pulses a yellow energy, and it cracks the box. He pulls out an artisanal hammer, like almost a forge hammer of Mord, and he looks at it and kind of goes, and he gives it kind of a once over, and then does the ritual to send it back. Neppy relays this immediately to Kokanee, and they relay it to the group. Neppy casts sending to King Avard, informing him that there needs to be some increased presence, especially at the Temple of Palor, that there may be dead people, and to that, he might have heard of what had happened at the Gatestone Keep, and much is related, but there's not a lot she can say, and she promises a visit soon, when she can. And she requests reinforcements in Toran, and he obliges. Callie calls Kamea via the Sending Stone, and she will reach out to the other kingdoms. Kamea says she's spoken with Hector, and he's made it very clear that the secrecy is paramount about what they're doing, and she doesn't quite understand what's happening, but she trusts Callie, and wishes to keep her safe, and says that she trusts what she's doing. Nebi also sends a message to Kamea thanking her for what she had done with Captain Shade, that there had been some movement in Toran, and if that was a seal that Alamir broke, then, or got, they might notice some ramifications. Spooky casts sending to her uncle in Barmwich, and he's noticed some trouble through the Crinewood, some unrest, reports of increased aggression in the wildlife, something similar to the things that Finnan had noticed while he was out on his travels during those 6 months away. Kokanee chats with Letters over these days before we approach the fog bank, and starts discussing the circlet. Letters attunes to it. Finnan uses gaze of the two minds to see through it, to see what Letters sees, just as like a different perspective. They focus in, and as they do so, they realize it's taking quite a toll on them, but it only one level of exhaustion, so it's not depleting them entirely. Kokanee is wearing the iron circlet, which he is able to, feels the gaze of the construct that he's been looking through rise as the head rises. Letters feels a warmth in his chest, and a heat kind of coming from the inside of his chest. He hears the creaking of metal. Kokanee can actually turn his head, and he sees like a mouth or lower jaw of the construct extends, kind of two large metal claws and talons. And as Letters opens his mouth, flame exerts through, and kind of some rudimentary sound. And they realize that this is likely a dragon construct, or like a clockwork dragon of some depiction, which is so fucking cool, I can't even say. So they're still looking for the brass circlet, where they're wondering if that will control the body movement. And they are essentially deaf and blind while this happens. It's almost like a familiar. And they're, they take a look around the chamber. The far edge of this chamber, they see some wall reliefs. And Letters and Kokanee can kind of telepathically communicate while connected like this, but they can't communicate with anyone else, which is so fucking cool. While this is happening, Spooky chats with Kamea and Jar via the Sending Stone, and all of that kind of stuff. There's a couple other stuff that goes on where Clack talks to Letters that Finnan could potentially be a gravel boy. I forget the context. Someone will have to remind me, but that was, put on the table early on. And Callie does some of her training with Letters over the couple days. So as we approach, actually my day estimate might be off. I might be a couple days behind. I'll have to update that in my calendar. I think, it was 3 to 4 days to get to the fog, and then we were 3 days in the fog, so we would be potentially another week. I will take a look. So we approach the dense fog, and Letters and Finnan kind of take first watch and see this jagged outcropping kind of coming up and out the front. What he thinks might be some rocks or some ships, we're not sure. Potentially shipwrecks and stuff like that. Kokanee takes a look at the back and sees about 300 foot back there's an outline of a ship following behind us with a figure standing on the front. We wonder if this is a reflection or a mirror image. Finnan casts Armor of Agathis, and Kokini shoots the image of Finnan off the back of the ship, and the bullet actually hits Finnan. So there's a bit of testing and stuff like that goes on. Finnan sends his cat up with Letters' fly spell and sees some broken islands off in the distance, and Finnan is able to help steer the ship through this kind of jagged outcropping as we broach the fog on it the first way in. As we're sailing through, still kind of keeping an eye on the ship behind us, Spooky notices some conjuration magic and some green tinge fog, which she dispels. There's no sense of fey, fiend, or undead. Terry senses nothing, no aberration. Some aberrations very deep below the surface, but nothing of his kind of like primeval awareness within the 6 miles that he uses. Kokini casts sees invisibility, whoa, and sees nothing. And Spooky kind of does a detect magic using like a sonar kind of around, using 10 minutes like to ritual cast detect magic around a circle of the ship, and notices nothing, and she catches kind of one other patch of fog in her radar and dispels that as well. At the beginning of the night shift, Neppy catches this faint odor, this like really acrid odor as she's keeping a watch, and she has to make a con save, which she fails and takes a bunch of damage. A lot of the crew fall under the same difficulties. We're imagining it's that green fog that Spooky thought of caught before, so we were in it. And Neppy heals that one unconscious sailor back to health. And it's too quiet. Finnan sees no marine life through the bottom of the boat. The crew are getting nervous. We wake everyone. The crew's really on edge. The captain's very nervous for her crew. Neppy attempts to comfort the sailor that she brought back, and I don't know if she does a good job in her own kind of creepy, dark, twisty way. And Callie scares Clack as he's walking around, and he says she'll never be a gravel boy. We discussed where we approach to, and what this might all be. All these things here might be, things that the Raven Queen is doing, or has, this place has put in. There's been a lot of death here. Maybe this used to be the city of the Raven Queen, so maybe this is an omen. Or her work that we might be going into. So we talk about that a little bit. And then, after about an hour, we resume as before. The rest of the night goes by uneventfully. Day 2 in the morning, Letters sends a lightning bolt into the water, making out some shapes. We lower a sword under the water, almost as like a fishing rod, and I think Finnan almost gets pulled over, and he drops the sword in the water so Neppy can scry on it. She scries on the sword down at the bottom, and it's impaled on the hull of a ship. It's caught on buildings, some stone structures, and there's tons of other shipwrecks around. We work in teams, and to kind of keep watches and make sure there's at least 3 of us on deck at all times. We ask Captain Shade if she'll stay while we explore the expanse. Oh my gosh, Rogue, shut up. There's nothing that you need. Seriously, dude. And she will if we pay her 750 gold pieces, and Finnan actually makes a really good point that the likelihood of them getting out of the fog and back to ice meet increases exponentially with us on board. And she agrees. The captain agrees. So we pay her up front. Neppy pays her up front. So Kokini takes a look around and notices some more greenish hints to the fog. Spooky dispels those and the clouds dissipate. Finnan sees the ghost ship again, taking a look off the back of the boat, and actually realizes it's closer, probably about 200 feet. As the day drifts on, we hear some distant kind of melodic music. I'm going to go scruff my cat because she sucks. Give me 1 sec here. Rogue is being such an idiot. Sorry. So we hear this kind of distant melodic music. It feels pleasant. But we don't make too much of it. Neppy hears it as she's coming up with her high passive perception. Finnan probably hears it too. As the night shift comes up, we notice the ship is closer to us. And probably within about maybe 100 feet. And as we're talking, someone jumps overboard. Kokanee casts silence on the ship, and Finnan and Callie dive in with Caraxine breathing masks. The water's fucking cold. They swim towards the crew member as he swims straight down towards the bottom of the ocean. Finnan casts sleep on him to try to get him to stop swimming, but he does stop swimming, but he also dies because he drowns essentially. And yeah, Finnan carries and swims him back up to the ship. Callie's floundering with the weight of her armor. She casts haste on herself to get her back up, but she Finnan broaches the surface. Letters and Kokanee fly over to help. They arrive to Finnan and they pass the guy up, and then he goes to help Callie as her haste fades, and then she is stunned and she starts stinking again, and Finnan helps her back up. Kokanee is with Callie and Finnan and Letters, and they can't see the ship. They're about 80 feet behind us, about 20 feet ahead of where this ghost ship seems to be sailing. Neppy yells at them, and they can't hear us. Kokanee yells again, and they can just hear each other, and they're drifting farther from us. So we start making, to try and get back on the boat, and they manage to do that. But the second that they do, we all start hearing this siren song. Neppy and Kokanee and Clack fail their saves, and they start making their way towards the edge. We just love the music so much. It's so beautiful. 4 crew member also tried to do that. Spooky casts hold person, I believe, on all of us, and paralyzing us. She tries to dispel the music, but it doesn't work. It's not necessarily a spell, it's more of an ability. There's one guy that manages to jump over the edge that we catch. Letters and Finnan jump in to try and hold this guy. Letters cast Bigby Hand. There's a lot of stuff going on to try and get this guy back up onto the boat. The captain starts lashing folks to the mast, lashing them to the hold. Neppy and Kokanee and Clack are tied essentially to the masts. Letters is underwater, and they are trying to get to the top, but the guy manages to break free, and he casts lightning lure on him, and he kills him. So 2 of the crew at this point are dead. They sinking dead. The guy, and Letters lets this guy go sinking down to the bottom. As Letters gets back on the ship, he's like, "What the fuck?" And he punches Kokanee, and the pain knocks Kokanee out of it. He does the same thing to Neppy. He punches Neppy right across the face, and she breaks out of it, and she asks I think either Letters or Finnan asks her to save the dead man that they had pulled up before, and he's long dead at this point, so she can't save him. There's no healing that she can do on him short of revivifying him, but diamonds are precious at this point, so she can't do it. Finnan flies the shadow cat. And at this point we all stuff in our ears to prevent us from hearing the siren song. Finnan flies the shadow cap up and sees a little starlight, but he can't see the island and also can't see the ship. So it's pretty all encompassed in there. Neppy walks around and gives last rites for the dead crew. So this is, I still believe, the day shift. Yeah, so this is the second day. So this has all been happening on the second day, and there's some starlight as the night kind of hits, and we're getting ready for the last another night shift. Neppy starts to try and give last rites to the crew, but they have already, if there's anybody else who's no, she just walks around. She just stands off the back of the boat, stands at the back, and then gives last rites. Letters and Spooky discuss different signals. What does fireball mean? What does lightning bolt mean? Do they need help? All of that kind of stuff. And as the second night hits, the ship suddenly pulls down as the anchor we had dropped before hits the bottom. We reel it up so that we can keep going. Then we are realizing that the ghost ship is about 50 feet behind us as Finn casts daylight on a coin with intention to throw it down underwater and scry on it again. But as he goes to him off the back of the boat, we see the ghost ship about 50 feet behind us. Neppy walks to the edge and takes the coin out of his hand, and we see Finnan with his head split open as he did when the mind flayers ate his brain. Kokanee sees familiar scars across his chest open, and one particularly bad one on his side as well, with claw marks down this front. Neppy sees herself at about 14, 15 years old, drowned, bloated, looking as if she's been underwater for a long time. Spooky sees herself gray and pallid and look as if she's quite old. Letters looks, or no, gray and pallid, sorry, because like as if she's her soul separated from her body, as it was with the Baron. Callie sees her head open and split, and Letters sees himself old, decayed, and like desiccated. Callie attacks herself with her sword, like herself on the ship, and nothing happens. Neppy, stands and says, "Please wait, like, please, everyone, trust me." She knows what this is. She's not afraid. It's the Raven Queen is obviously trying to tell us that, death is coming for us, and we need not be afraid. It's not going to hurt us. But this is to dissuade people. And, all of these shipwrecks are likely people who tried to attack the ghost ship but ended up attacking themselves, just as we had proved on one of those very first days when, Kokanee shot the image of Finnan on the ghost ship behind, and it actually hit Finnan on the boat. And they would have estimated that those, fires were coming from the ghost ship if they hadn't known any better. Or something else would have gotten them. But, Neppy stands at the back, coin in hand, and she's not afraid, and she asks them to trust her. That she knows that they're supposed to be going towards the expanse, and this ghost ship can't stop them. Letters unplugs his ear for the moment. The melody is very loud and difficult to pinpoint. He manages to make the stave, and he shoves the plug back in his ear. Neppy holds the daylight coin as she stands at the back of the boat, holding the talisman of the Raven Queen that she was given by Softly, and she casts Commune, extending herself beyond and hoping to commune with the Raven Queen. Her vision darkens as she feels like she's in a pool of water. Everything is black around her. Think like Stranger Things with Eleven walking in when she is in that sensory deprivation. And at the edge of this pool, or into the blackness, she sees a figure of a woman with a mask covering her face. Neppy kneels down in this water. It's a couple inches deep, and she looks towards the image of the Raven Queen, bowing her head, and asks if the image are meant to dissuade people from going towards the Forgotten Expanse, or the lost city of Manta. And the Raven Queen responds yes, does not with words, but a nod. Neppy asks if they will hurt us, and there is no response from the Raven Queen. And Neppy asks her final question, "Are you at peace?" And as if it like a cold chill comes over her, she hears the word "never," and then the image fades away. As she's standing on the back of the boat, Neppy feels this actually quite a sense of peace. Even though the Raven Queen is not at peace, she knows that she's going the right way. This is where she's supposed to go. Neppy's feeling like a really strong pull towards the Forgotten Expanse. As she's doing so, Kokanee comes up, and Neppy and Kokanee chat a little bit about death. They talk a bit about their own deaths and what had happened. Kokanee points out the scar of where he was impaled with a scorpion that poisoned him, a wound he still carries, but not to the same extent. Neppy talks about what happened when she was drowned in her temple during the middle of her coming-of-age ceremony, her Sahron, and that she was held aloft over the pool for 6 days and then fell into the pool and was alive. But during that, it had been like an hour for her. The time that she was missing, where the time she was met her goddess and called for her prophecy. They discuss Letters' potential death and who's going to be the one to bring him back from that, or to save him from that. And Neppy's not afraid. She's just like really not afraid of the whole thing. And they stand there at the back of the boat for a while, kind of, as the daylight coin fades. They carry a lantern and they just sit and they watch the boat, and carry out their watch. On the morning, rest comes to us as we're, the ship follows us and we're not, impeded by anything else. And the next day, Finn sees some jagged rocks just below the surface of the water as we keep moving through the fog, and we see a reef. The captain manages to, we drag across one of the rocks and we take a lot of damage. So the crew starts doing repairs downstairs and we decide kind of how to go forward. The shadow cat kind of scouts forward after about 10 as we keep going, and we manage to navigate our way through these rocks. We drag across a couple more, but in about 15 or 20 feet beyond this, the reef, the fog ends. So we just have to get through the reef, and then we can get through the fog, and then we can get to the expanse. Clack tries to revoke Finnan's gravel boy status. There's something here about Clack and Finnan lying about something, and Spooky believes them, but I'm not sure what that is in my notes. Kokanee works to fix the boat. Letters and Finnan work to destroy the reef, and over about 90 minutes before the boat moves forward, they've managed to destroy just enough with blasts of Eldritch blasts, essentially, to get the ship through the reef, both width and depth. We decide that we're actually going to take out the rest of the day, and we're going to long rest, and we'll pick up and just make sure that we're all good to go and have some time with letters is spell tapped, essentially. So we're just going to make sure that we're all good to go, and then at dusk, at the end of a long rest, we are going to go through the reef, go through the fog, and we will get to the expanse. And that is where we ended. Holy moly, you guys, shit's gonna be great. I'm gonna pause right here and then do a little bit of my little questiony stuff that I do afterwards. Okay, next session happening episode 69. Nice. Happening this Saturday, February 29th, a very wonderful day on the leap year. Maybe we'll get a cake, who knows. Looking forward to it so much. Love you guys. And is it Saturday yet? Okay, so that's long enough. Yeah, wow. Like, so much has gone on, and I know we've just been traveling for 2 weeks, but holy fuck, that thing with the ghost ship was creepy and awful and so great. Such a really cool moment for me of Neppy just I wasn't afraid for that whole thing. I was like, no, we shouldn't hit it because it's not actually gonna hurt us. It was so cool. What a cool piece of storytelling that Tim did. I really loved this episode. I have so many questions about the expanse. I have no idea what we're gonna find there. Are we gonna find ruins? Are we gonna find people living there? Are there what is, if the Raven Queen is dead, how did she die? Who betrayed her? Because somebody betrayed her. What? Oh my god, I'm sitting in my head being what if Nephthisiket betrayed her? What if Neppy's goddess betrayed her? How? Or Nephthisiket was actually not this benevolent, just, lawful god that Neppy thinks she is? And what if she killed the Raven Queen to take her spot? Or what if it was Arathis? What if, in the Pact of the Dawn War or whatever, the Raven Queen found herself on a losing side, losing quote unquote, and Arathis killed her? What, or who did it? Why? And how do you kill a god? I think there was a little bit of conversation during the boat ride about how to kill a god. I think Finnan asked that, and Neppy was well, it would have had to be intentioned and purposeful, because you can't, and talking about Arathis in her form and how she got separated from her body. There's just going to be some spooky ass shit out in the Forgotten Expanse, let me tell you that much. There's going to be lots of shit out there. I have some big thoughts about what might happen. I think somebody's going to die. I think that's going to happen. We have diamonds, so that's okay for now, but we don't have a lot of diamonds. We don't have an endless supply of diamonds. So I think somebody's going to die. I really hope they don't. That's like big goal number one for me and for Neppy, is to make it through the Forgotten Expanse where nobody is dead. Because death is one thing. You're traveling with the high priestess of the the goddess of the moment of the transition between life and death. So like we gonna be okay, but dang dudes. This is so fun. So happy to play D&D with you lovely folks. Can't wait for this Saturday session. Chat soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your episode 69 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater. Nice. Session date happening on February 29th, 2020, our leap year day. In-game date starts on midday of the 24th of Elamine and ends late evening or middle evening on the 24th of Elamine, so on the same day. Have not rested. The title of this episode is A Path Alight, She Beckons Below. Okay, so we make our way through the reef, pushing through the fog, like abruptly ending as we sail through with the boat. And about 280 to 300 feet away, we see the shoreline. There's kind of this gray landscape with nothing much there, with soft hills. We see some ruins and some vegetation, but not much. And there's a bunch of debris on the shoreline. And then there's high black walls that are in the distance. Taking another look at the shoreline, we see about 150 feet down, there's remnants of a stone building. There's an intact rowboat. On the deck of the ship, we decide to use the Caraxian brandy as a component for Hero's Feast, which gives us 17 servings of it, which is great. And we all imbibe the Hero's Feast, giving us advantage on wisdom saving throws, immune to being charmed or frightened, and a bunch of temporary hit points. It ups our maximum hit points for 24 hours. So we take the dinghy after, and the the boat remains moored offshore. We take the dinghy, and at about 150 feet out, the water swells behind us, and we get surrounded by this tentacled creature with this huge black maw with black scaling. We fight it, or start to, as Neppy casts Water Walk on everyone, and it's not real. It's fake. It's an illusion, kind of same as the ghost ship was. So we drop initiative, and we all start walking towards the shore. Clack stays in the boat, and Spooky drags the boat to shore. Callie's already had her wings out, so Finnan, using Mislead, smokes her with a couple of Eldritch blasts. It actually does damage to her, which we're like, oh, come on, we have to go. Time for this later. So we all kind of discuss our death and the concept of death and what it was like to see the ghost figures. And Neppy talks about not being afraid of death. It's in everything she does, so she's not really afraid of it. But she hears a faint rumble coming from the buildings further in on the island. As they land on the shore. Neppy sees alamwat trees, which are the trees that are the trees that are in her grove, at the sacred grove at her temple, and there's one at the temple in Wolfreen. She runs towards them. On them are a fruit called Rila. It's the same fruit that they use in her temple to make the drink that is mildly hallucinogenic. But these ones are smaller, whereas Rila, where Neppy's temple are about the size of papayas. These ones are smaller, almost the size of plums. Neppy thinks about taking the fruit, and they advise her against it, and she agrees. And as they approach the hut, they see footprints. We call out, and there's no response. And what we realize is that it's really quiet. There's no wind. There's no nothing. Wiggles gets sent in, and he sees two figure statues. They're kind of sitting at the table. The hut is old. There's no wind. Everything looks petrified, and these people look petrified also. We enter, and we see the remnants of the Rila on the table, as if they had been eating it. And then all of a sudden, as we go in, the two figures turn to us and try and reach out and grab Kokanee and Neppy. Kokanee manages to dodge out of the way, but it hits Neppy, and it attempts to petrify her, but it does not succeed. She manages to save against it. It looks like these were sailors. Letters hits them, and it starts to disintegrate with Callie finishing him off, and Kokanee just obliterates the other one with a heavenly bullet, doing like 55 damage in one shot. And it's so quiet. Everything is so quiet in the Forgotten Expanse, even as we're just on the beach. So we investigate the rest of the hut, and there doesn't seem to be anything else. As we start to approach the city, the rumbling gets a bit louder. We investigate the hut, and there's not really anything else. We head in towards the city as we drew, and we have to cross this kind of open field to do so. And as we do that, the graying kind of grass crumbles around us. It's about a half a day's journey, which will take us to like early evening. And it seems as if the grass was petrified and looks like it was blown out, kind of a shockwave echoing out from the city. We press on for about 3 hours to about the edge of the ruins, and we arrive at the edge of the city. There's these high black walls that are also blown inward. We reckon that it almost was like an implosion, and then a smaller implosion, then a huge explosion. About 100 feet ahead, we see this river and a bridge, and as we approach it, there's like a soft gray trickle of water. It doesn't, I mean, it could be water, could be something else, but there's not a lot of it. And as we make our way through the buildings, the rumbling gets very loud indeed. And then turning for the corner, kind of coming up from behind the buildings, we see this large black figure, this horns extending out. It's about 120 feet away, and this like necrotic, dark, shadowy aura emanates around it, this black smoke, and it raises a finger towards us. Neppy calls to it, demanding to let it pass, and we all kind of hold our action, wondering if it's another illusion. It seems to acknowledge that, Neppy had said something, but doesn't really seem to pay it any heed. Once it moves towards us, it points its finger at Neppy, and the air around it feels her go cold, and it kind of emanates with this necrotic energy, but there's no effect to it. Spooky pops off a fireball, and the flame just disappears and seems to not really do much damage. Neppy tries to intimidate it a little bit, just to like let them pass, and kind of uncertain of the outcome. Letters tries to speak to it in Infernal, but doesn't really seem to clock either. Spooky then banishes it, and manages to succeed, and then the rumbling stops. So we don't know what this thing was, but we know it was actually real and could for sure hurt us, not an illusion like the rest of it. So who knows what brought it there, but we'll save that more for my potential comments at the end of the episode. We head into the city, and we see these marks of a siege, but it looks like it was thousands of years ago. There's debris, but no bodies, and there's almost like some siege-like weaponry inside the wall. And as we move into the city, the structures seem a bit more intact. They're a bit like very like Victorian Gothic in their depiction. And Neppy spots the statue, a statue of a raven, kind of in the center courtyard, this circular courtyard, and behind it is this huge willow tree. It's petrified and black. And very, very tall. And at the base, there is a large obsidian plate, like a flat plate lying on the ground. And Neppy remarks that this might be, if we were looking for, the resting place of the Raven Queen, this might be it. If we were looking for a tomb, this was it. So there doesn't seem to be any handle or anything, so Neppy kneels down, and Finnan asks if he would like him to take a look in it, and she says no, like, we have to go on faith. We go on faith. We're not in any danger. Or she's not afraid that, or not that she's not in any danger, but she's not afraid. She knows that this is the right place for her to be, so she sits down, and says a small prayer and cuts her hands as she normally does, and lets the blood trickle onto the stone. And as she does so, the blood seems to suck into the obsidian plate, and then at the top of it, it seems to be two kind of light gray handprints appear at the top of the plate. And Neppy kind of gets the sense that this would be the place where your hands go if you were in a prayer of supplication, like she would be intending to do. So Neppy, she takes Kokanee's hand and squeezes it, looking at everyone and saying everything will be fine. we'll be all right. So she climbs atop the plate, and she kind of fluffs out her vestments behind her, and then puts her hands out in front and kind of sinks down into almost this child's pose, would-be-esque prayer position, and placing her hands where the gray hand imprints, and Neppy sinks down a couple inches so that like just the tip of her horns and the back and her clothes are visible. It's almost as if she's like being pulled into the plate, and everyone starts freaking out, and she kind of gets pulled down below her. And she hears a voice, and it's young, youthful, and she recognizes the voice. It's the voice of her goddess. It's the voice of Nipthisiket, and it says, "Who dares disturb the undergrove? Identify yourself." And she, identifies herself as the high priestess Nepentha of Nipthisiket at Temple Philenis. And sorry, I thought the baby was waking up. She says, "Those who are dead must remain dead." And Neppy sinks further into the plate. And as she does so, she realizes that there's a staircase descending downward, and she walks down a couple of the stairs, looking down out into pitch black darkness. And she turns around, and she's able to see the vision, like the picture of everyone, or the light, whatever light it is, kind of like the light gray sky existence up above, with everyone standing above. And she, with tears in her eyes and this like sense of like adulation and comfort, says, "It's all right. It's, please come in." And then before she does, she goes, "Oh, have I cast life? Have I given some of my essence to all of you?" And Clack says, "No." So she casts life transference on him, dealing damage to herself, and then giving some of her life vitality to Clack, and explaining why and what is important, and that they must be blessed by a priestess of Nipthisiket to enter into their temple, because it's simply not done otherwise. So they head on down, and as they go through, this cavern is filled with almost a forest, but the wood is almost all petrified. And taking a look at the trees, seem to be growing from the ceiling. It's the roots of the willow tree are much, 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 much larger than they should be. The cavern stretching about 15 feet above us, and then going on for who knows how long. It's pitch black, and Finnan's cast dark vision on Kokanee so he can see. And we push through this kind of dense thicket. And we walk for about an hour as we move back to the staircase. And as we return to the staircase, we see that there's a very thin layer of fog at the base of the staircase, probably up to our ankles. Neppy, asks Nipthisiket for guidance, and sends her off kind of to the right hand side. And about an hour later, again, they end up back at the staircase. Letters sticks his face, and the fog has gotten higher at this point. Letters sticks his face in the fog, and it's accurate. It removes it before it does any burning damage to it, but the sense is that you can't stay in this thing very long. Neppy has a thought for a moment that perhaps she has to walk out alone, and because she knows that Nipthisiket's brought her here, and that this is something that Nipthisiket holds dominion over, so she knows she's in the right place, but perhaps it's something that just she needs to go find. So she takes a moment to kind of impart some words to the other people, and it's clear that they're worried about her, and they're, being like, "Neppy, don't talk like you're dying. Neppy, don't talk like you're gonna die." And but these are things she really has to say, and really wants to say, and it's not so much that she's worried about her death imminently within the next, on this small journey that she might have to go on to find what she's looking for, but so much is like worrying about her own, what this place might do to her within the last days to come. So feeling like she needs to say this now, in case there is a time where she doesn't have the moment to later. She turns to Letters and says that she's in awe of his courage. To Clack, she says that he's solid and dependable, and the group is better for having him in it. To Finnan, she says that his mother would be very proud of him. To Spooky, she says that she holds the group together, and bids her to take care of the group. And Spooky, leans in and whispers quietly so nobody else can hear. "Okay, boss." he turns to Callie, and that she says that she shines like the sunrise, and feels comfort in her strength. And then she turns to Kokanee, and she says she loves him, and she's so proud of him, and that if she dies, do what needs to be done first, and if they can't bring her back, then take her to Philinus, because they will know what to do, likely by way of Bacall, because he's never been. And he tells her that he loves her, and that he'll never stop looking for her, whatever that entails. So Finan casts gaze of the two minds on her so that he can see through her eyes in case she needs help. And she makes him promise that he will drop it and let it go if she asks him to, just in case. So Neppy walks off alone, and she walks for about 15 minutes and then finds herself circling back to the base of the staircase, and she's frustrated, and she sinks down into the dirt and casts commune, cutting her hands and letting the blood seep into the soil. She kind of has to dig at it for a moment. Nipthisiket says to her, she asks, is what we seek for in here? Nipthisiket says yes, asks her if they're in any danger, and she says, there was kind of no response, and then she says, please help me, will you guide me? I need your aid. I want to find what you want me to find. Show me. And then Nipthisiket says that there will need to be a light for the path. So Neppy springs up. Finan starts walking the group back towards them, and Neppy just runs them, yelling for light. Kokanee casts light, and Finan casts daylight, and it illuminates, and the light lifts up, and it's almost as if the roots of the trees suck it in, and then they kind of like they shoot a path of light off towards the direction, and Neppy takes off running. She starts running in the path. We follow it for about another 2 hours, and another half hour after that, after we have to cast the light again, and the daylight follows us through. The fog is up to our chests at this point, so Callie lifts Spooky up onto her shoulders, and we find 2 pillars glowing, illuminating a low wall, and there's this massive mask face, only the mouth is only semi-visible. It looks as if it is a mask in the shape of the Raven Queen, carved of marble and obsidian. There's no door, but we look up, and the eyes that are in this mask seem to be hollow and open. There's no otherwise visible entrance, and Neppy kind of wonders aloud to herself if this is what Nipthisiket wanted us to see, if this is the temple or the tomb she wanted us to find, and did she create this? Is this under her dominion? The Undergrove is under her watch. Did she create this also? Neppy wonders that aloud. There was also a point somewhere in the middle of all of this too, where, I think it was Letters asked her what would happen if she found out that her goddess killed the Raven Queen. And she's unsure. It's like a crisis of faith moment of if something would have happened that questions everything you'd have known about the thing that you believed in the most. It's a lot of big questions from a girl, and yeah. Okay, so next, and that's where we ended. The fog is kind of behind us, giving us a bit of space, and that's where we're picking up. Next session happening tonight, 7:30. Very excited for episode 70. Looking forward to it. And I'm going to do actually, I don't think I'm going to do any questions tonight. I think I'm still pondering all of this stuff. Maybe I'll do one at the end of next episode. Okay, thanks, folks. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your episode 70 recap for the Adventures of Blackwater. Session happening March 7th, 2020. In-game date of the evening of the 24th of Elamine. So it would have been I don't know, about dinner time, the evening of the 24th, to in the wee hours of the morning, probably 3 or 4 in the morning of the 25th. of Elamine. Okay, so oh yeah, and the title of this episode is Ever Faithful. So we start off, we meet the group outside the tomb, or the entrance to the tomb, or what we think is a tomb, with the face of marble and obsidian. Clack takes a look at the marble and says it's quite pure. We take a peek at it, kind of considering what to do. We decide to rest rather in the grove than in the tomb, with Neppy's reasoning that she at least knows that this dominion, like this place, is that of her goddess, Nephthisiket, versus she doesn't know what we're going to find in there. So the pillars that are out in front of the tomb seem to be keeping the fog at bay. So better to rest here where it's essentially safe versus in there where it's not. Spooky does a detect magic to kind of around the perimeter of the entrance, the mask along the wall, and the stone is enchanted and it seems to keep the fog at bay. Neppy and they decide to keep watch, 2 different watches. Neppy and Kokanee take first watch. The fog maintains, it doesn't come any closer. Everyone else who is sleeping has trouble sleeping, having to make wisdom saving throws. The silence is so unnerving that they start hearing the pulse of their heart in their heads, and they're like with this strange nightmares, these kind of torturous faces of those who have wronged them in the past. They wake suddenly uneasy. Clack, however, is fully unable to sleep. Neppy chats with him about the word of recall spell that she has, and discusses that, if she asks him to get in the bag, so that they can teleport out if necessary, and he'd be willing to do so and have to hold his breath. Kokanee does an insight check, and Clack does feel part of the group, but knows that his place is a bit different, but is okay with that. The second watch, the first watch kind of goes oh my gosh, I can't even think of the word. Unmolested. There we go. So there's like nothing that happens on watch. It's just really quiet. The second watch, Neppy and Kokanee are sleeping with a restless sleep, feeling a tightness in their jaw, their teeth clenched. And Finnan takes the second watch and casts sleep on. Oh, sorry. Cast sleep on Clack, which he takes just to kind of help him get over the hump. So he is able to get a sleep. Doesn't sleep well, but is able to sleep. So we discuss ways to be reverent to the Raven Queen and just to be reverent in this temple in general, rather than like a smash and grab. We're going to go in and try and be as respectful and reverent as possible, realizing that there was a wrong that happened here. They discuss the dreams, of the fact that if the Raven Queen is, if she was betrayed, it makes sense that she wants to remind us of betrayal, remind us of people who have wronged, and all of that kind of stuff. So she reminds us of that as we are getting our stuff together ready for the morning. Neppy goes up to the temple, to the marble, and offers a prayer and smears her own blood across the temple of the Raven Queen, and it makes this and she would do so in a way that reminiscent of any art or any depictions of using the red that she did, and it stands out quite starkly against the clean marble. Finnan uses his ghostly gaze to look in, seeing that it's quite solid. He climbs up to the right eye, the one that has the scar across it, and slips down. Letters then flies him up. The right eye is hollow, the left is not. There's a metal plate, which he sees descend into a staircase, and there's an engraving of a willow tree that is upside down. We're assuming the willow tree that is the one above, and they pull everyone up. Letters and Finnan, once Finnan's up there, and then he braces himself, gets everyone up, and pulls everyone up. So we take a look at the metal plate. Letters tries blood, no use. Kokanee tries to turn it, no go. Calliope, wishes to thank the Raven Queen and thank the the place for this being so hallowed and apologizes for any wrongs done. We try and cast light a couple times and it's snuffed out. But as we cast light, we look up and Callie's eyes have taken on this brightness, this kind of glowing essence to them. Not necessarily anything anyone we've seen. She looks at Neppy. Neppy, asks her if she's all right. She says she's fine. Neppy kind of looks over her quickly and realizes that this might be a trait of her heritage, her ASMR angelic heritage coming through. Letters tries fire, which doesn't work. It's snuffed out. Neppy brings out her scythe, and the shadows deepen and darken around her, and deepen around the metal plate, and Finnan casts darkness on the plate and it slides open. We walk down for about 15 minutes and come to a landing. We find an archway and we see about 5 feet in, there are these shelves of skulls, human and elven. They're all the same amount of ancient, like the same age, but they're all old, like really fucking old. Spooky and Letters take a look for traps, none, and the stair spirals down. Neppy leads with incense, praying down the stairs. The wizards look for traps. There are hundreds and hundreds of skulls lining this corridor as we walk down in the dark. So I'm just flipping my page here. After about 20 minutes, Letter sees a carving of a crescent moon on the wall, and Neppy recognizes it as the symbol of Sehanine. It's really nicely carved, but it blends into the wall, and she is the patron of rogues and trickery and the moonlight. We see this with a light and kind of take a peek at it, and we decide to keep going. As the light, he illuminates it, we illuminate with a light, and then it... when it closes, we hear this faint creaking and scraping and this unintelligible babble, and it seems to be coming from the skulls, and those of us with dark vision can see the skulls turn and look towards us in the dark. And Finnan attempts to match the crescent of his eyes to the crescent of Sehanine, and inside he sees that there's this another layer, these like bead-like shapes, kind of pearlescent, the shininess, signifying the symbol of Sehanine. So Neppy, looks towards one of the skulls, bidding them to give them peace. Everyone's pretty freaked out. They cross the threshold of this symbol with the light on. Letters tries to listen to the skulls and they're unintelligible, but we decide to keep going in the dark. Down another 60 feet or so, there's this creaking and groaning keeps happening, and the whispers getting louder and louder, and we realize that the Hero's Feast brandy that we had drank is the thing keeping us safe. If not, we would likely all be very scared and quite disconcerted with everything happening in here. Callie is like visibly uncomfortable with everything that's happening. We reach another landing, another archway, and there's a faint blue light, and we kind of go through, and as we get to the bottom of the archway, we kind of think about like, what is this? Like, is this it? This is the tomb. Who are these people? Why was there a symbol of Sehanine? Was that just kind of like a tag, like a rogue or a trickster coming in and carving that on the wall, or why was that there? Who are these people? We take a look through to the next archway, and there's a circular chamber. And it really smells, there's like faint blue light coming from it, and it smells of ozone, kind of like that fresh smell outside. And the walls of this chamber are lined with skulls, and in the center, there is a lightning bolt held in stasis. Letters throws a pebble in, and for a second, nothing happens, and then the lightning bolt just turns and just zaps this rock, and just obliterates it, and then a second later it goes back. Callie takes a peek and seeing no archway on the far side, and on the floor there's kind of a series of large concentric circles, and about 10 feet up there is a kind of a crack in the wall, like a square bit that's missing from the wall. Letters attempts to dispel magic, and the lightning bolt stops for a moment. The magic is gone, and it emanates from an orb in the ceiling and the floor, and then it returns again. So we chat for a moment about what this is and what is important. So like link the lightning to Cord, and we're wondering that if the previous room was Sehanine and this is Cord, are these all the followers of Cord that were in Manta when when whatever happened here in Manta happened? Were those the followers of Sehanine that were in this city when whatever happened? So we're kind of thinking about this and kind of talking about Finnan pitches an idea that what if this is the seal? What if one of these things is the seal? And what if we're here trying to destroy it or trying to get through it, and that's not the right idea? And Neppy goes, no, like I don't think this is the case. The Nepthysiket said that the seal was safe here in the Forgotten Expanse. I somehow it feels like it's pulling me forward. It's pulling me through this. I don't feel like it's here. So in that moment, Callie walks into the room. The lightning snaps at her, and using the tattoo and the gift of Akkadi, it redirects the lightning into the hole, and then it into the wall and is in stasis again. The floor starts to turn, and the platform of concentric circles starts to stare down Callie, like basically doing us a big solid, because we would have all taken damage had we gone in there. And she was able to redirect the lightning, and as the platform circles down, as we crest this kind of thing, Finnan gives Callie a big hug and a kind of a kudos for a job well done that could have hurt her very dangerously. So we come down this platform down, and there's a pool of water below. Finnan Eldris looks for traps, and there is none. As we reach the edge of the water, it's churny and murky. Callie thinks about this room, and she feels kind of the essence of Melora in it, the tempest and the storm. Callie takes off her heavy armor, and Neppy does as well. Callie sinks down into the water, and kind of tries to connect with Melora, feels a calmness, a stillness, even in that eye of the storm. She feels her presence and no excess fear, and no dread. Someone, I forget, I think it might have been, it was either Finnan or Letters, take a sip of the water, and it's rancid. It is disgusting. It's just not good. And we wonder, where are the bodies? Where are the skulls? Where are the bones? If they're not in there, they must be in here. And there's no other exits, so we assume we have to swim down. Callie just kind of, once she feels comfortable, just slips into the water. Everyone jumps in except for Clack. Clack hesitates, and then Letters, offers his hand. Neppy waits for them both, and then they start swimming down. We go into kind of a skill check round that was pretty harrowing for a lot of us. Callie's able to swim down with Finnan and Spooky, Neppy, and Kokini feel the waves underneath and undercurrents that. And if you failed your strength check or saving throw, you took damage. And then if you succeeded, you were making athletics checks, otherwise taking damage. Neppy was really struggling with the swimming part, but was when she took damage, she was able to maintain her constitution and hold her breath. However, Callie, taking damage, was having a difficult time swimming down, and was also unable to hold her breath. So she lost one, and then two, so she had 3 minutes of air, and then so she took two, and it's about 100 feet depth. So Letters and Clack hit the bottom first, and then some skeletal hands start reaching out off the bottom to reach them, and they manage to get out of the way. Finnan can see the light of a stone he had cast light on and he sees the outlines of figures resting against something. Letters around him sees a stone pillar. Finnan also reaches a stone pillar. The top has kind of a ring to it, and they hold and twist it, and Clack holds onto it. As Callie takes damage at about 75 feet down, she loses the last of her breath and goes unconscious, and basically has 2 rounds before she has to start making death saves. And we all can't see each other, so we all have no idea. Spooky makes it down to the bottom, avoiding the skeletons, can't see. Kokini makes it down, avoiding the skeletons, and can't see. Letters can't see, but he pushes through the skeletons. Finnan and Kokini find the edges of a pillar. They go to turn them. Finnan sees Letters. Spooky gets grappled by the skeletons and can't see anything. Neppy makes it down. swirling around, she manages to grab onto a pillar, and they start the drain. Letters gets flung around, but we manage to have everything drained fully. Callie had not had to actually start making any death saves at this point. When the water fully drains, the skeletons release us, and then they return to a standing position kind of uniformly on the bottom of this basin, essentially. And in the center of the chamber, there's a platform with the symbol of Melora on it. Callie kind of clunks down, and Finnan heals her from a distance as Letters bringing her back to consciousness as she kind of like pushes herself up and kind of gets herself onto this plate of Melora. We are able to let go of the pillars slowly. I'm not sure if it will start the reverse of the drain or the filling again. So we go over to this plate of Melora. Neppy casts heal on Callie, giving her 70 hit points. We find Clack. We go over to Callie, prays to Melora. She feels the comfort still, even though what had happened. And so we realize that this is Melora, and these were likely some followers of Melora at some point. There's another staircase, so we crawl down it and take some time to put our armor back on. Next, we see a small domed chamber, kind of 10 by 10, with an archway leading to a long hall. Before we continue, Callie calls Kamea and tells her that we're in the expanse, that she almost drowned, and that she loves her. It's obvious that we woke Kamea up. It's very early in the morning, and we decide here to take a short rest, knowing that we have 6 hours of Hero's Feast left. Callie and Neppy chat for a moment, and Callie is pretty shaken up by what happened and says if she dies, she may want to go home because she doesn't want to leave Kamea without a wife, and she has things that she wants for the future and things that she knows Kamea wants and doesn't know if she can keep. She's terrified that she might take that away from Kamea if she were to die and Neppy or Kokani weren't able to bring her back. And Neppy says, I would respect whatever decision you made. So you could take that talisman, referring to the Chaos Talisman around her neck, and leave right now. And you would owe us no explanations. There would be no judgment. Neppy only wants to see that's happy for her and knows that she would do everything in her power to keep her alive. And even if she was dead, she would figure out a way. And so I think that brought Callie a little bit of comfort. Neppy was certainly concerned, but some comfort for sure. Letters and Yana chat about wizards coordinating with traps and stuff. Finnan and Letters chat with respect to darkness and dark vision. I forget what they talked about. And Letters and Clack talk about starting a religion, potentially. That if all this God stuff is what it's cracked up to be, perhaps they should start a religion. So we finished our short rest and we started to go towards this archway. We see down the hall that there's wall sconces of soft flame illuminating down a hall about 100 feet. There's a chamber at the end with a figure which seems to be a large steam golem. Reliefs on the walls of cityscapes of soldiers, copper reliefs of dragons. Written in high tongue on the archway is, which Callie and Kokani are both able to read, is that nothing escapes the sentinel's sight. Letters throws a pebble into the archway and starts hearing a grinding. This golem comes to life and blue light in its eyes and starts lowering its arms, and we realize that it's actually holding up the ceiling. And the ceiling's about 15 feet, so we've got to start running. So we just start moving forward. Finnan runs forward, and I have a round by round, so I'm going to probably go through round by round at this one, because this was a really, really, really intense thing that happened. So Finnan moves forwards. The dragon spray gas on him, and he's able to shake it off. He casts darkness on the head of the golem, but the eyes and the light shine through. Callie casts Shield of Faith on Spooky, runs in and looks around, Spooky just keeps running forward. Spooky runs up to this huge figure, the construct, and gets hit with a dragon dart, which seems to be a paralytic, which doesn't seem to affect her. She manages to shake it off. On initiative count 20, the ceiling starts lowering to 10 feet. So we next move to Kokani. Kokani casts Jump on himself, and the anti-magic dispels it. And I think... Yeah, I think there was some letters, then cast Misty Step to get himself forward, and there's some counterspelling of counterspelling so that they're actually able to make it forward. Neppy just continues running forward. Finnan starts scooping up Clack and running forward. Callie jumps across there's behind the golem, there's like this floor of gears and interconnecting that seems to be a grinder of some kind. So if you fall in behind the golem, it's a grinder. Spooky then jumps and doesn't make it. She lands in the gears and starts to fall down and takes a fuck ton of damage. She takes something like 63 damage in one turn. And then on the next, the ceiling count moves 10 feet lower. Kokanee jumps down, and his plan is to jump down into there's a little platform kind of on the edge that one could jump down and try and get Yana out of this grinder. And essentially he's got to do an acrobatics check to jump down and then a strength check to pull her out. He manages to roll natural 20s on both and gets her safe. Letters then runs up and makes it to the door with Neppy jumping across and making the jump. Finnan uses Ghostly Gaze to take a look, and we realize that this metal door at the end of the hallway is locked. So he uses Ghostly Gaze, and he goes to pick the lock, but he realizes he doesn't have the action for it. That's used up. Callie then prays to Arathis and asks her for guidance and assistance, and part of the door falls away. Clack then uses his Wand of Wonder to cast Gust of Wind on the door, and it blows the door open, and the grinding stops. We all crawl out and slide into the next room with Neppy casting a 5th level Cure Wounds on Yana, and Kokanee casting some Cure Wounds on Yana as well. And we catch our fucking breath. That is the closest that Blackwater has ever come to a TPK. Had Spooky wouldn't have been able, had nothing happened there and Spooky would have gone, the ceiling would have crushed all of us, leaving Kokanee and Spooky to be forced down into the grinder. Yeah, that would have been the end of Blackwater right there. Okay, so, and there's more. So we go into the next room, and we of course realize that that was the room of Arathis. The pseudo little dragon reliefs on the wall were casting counterspell at us, so we couldn't use much magic and had to get past this golem. Oh boy. So we come into the next room, realizing at this point that there's a theme to all of these rooms, that they're each kind of in essence of a god or goddess. So knowing that we've gone through Sehanine, Cord, Melora, and now Melora and Arathis, realizing we still have Pelor, Corellin, Bahamut, the Raven Queen, Moradin, Avan, and Avandra to go through. So we come into the next room and we crawl into it. Spooky takes a minute to cast Prestidigitation over all of us to clear. Oh, this was before actually the room of Arathis when we took a short rest. Clear off all the gunk off of us from the Melora room. Spooky's pantsuit is ripped and tattered, but her pants, her spooky pants, surprisingly, are still intact. Those pants are scary, you guys. So we take a moment, catch our breath in this next room, and we crawl into it and manage to get there through the 5 foot or the rest of the room. And it's a small room. Lining the top of the room on a shelf, gilded in gold, are about 60 skulls of mixed races. In the center of the room, there's a stone table with a golden bowl on it. Neppy thinks for a moment and wonders if it's related to Corellin with the beauty and the kind of ostentatiousness of it. But then going into the center in halfling, they realize there's something in halfling carved into the bowl. Yana casts, looks at it, and with its 3 words and in the last word being bet, and the symbol of 3 waves meaning Avandra. She casts comprehend languages, taking her 10 minutes to do so, ritual casting, and it says place your bet. So we sit at the table. We name there's 8 seats at it. Letters sits next to Finnan and Clack, and with going around the table, Finnan, then Kokanee, then Neppy, or Finnan, then Callie, then Neppy, then Kokanee, then Spooky, and Clack. So Finnan and Letters, and as we sit down, gold coins rise through the table in front of us. Finnan puts his coin in, unsure of what side he puts up. Letters puts his coin in with the symbol of Avandra size up, because on the other side there's an X. And a small silver coin emerges also with the symbol of Avandra and an X on the other side. They flip the coin, and it's the X. That's the side up, so they've both lost. And Finnan and Letters feel a pulse through their seats, both like forcing them to sit in their chairs, and life force draining from them, taking necrotic damage. So we all, realizing what we have to do, we all place our bets in. Letters puts in the symbol of Avandra. Callie puts in an X. Finnan an X. Clack, Avandra. Neppy, Avandra. Kokanee, Avandra. And Spooky, an X. One silver coin emerged. Finnan flips it, and we flipped to the Avandra side, the A, the symbol of A, and the coin melts into Finnan's hand, and we all seem to fade out of existence. We then land in, we feel a cool breeze under a star-filled sky. There's trees. We hear the sound of water and insects. There's two columns on the side of a rock formation. It feels like we're in this kind of field that is too bright, and we look up and there are too many stars. The stars are all in the right place, but there's too many of them. There's like sweet flowers, these moss-covered stone pillars. It feels like it's spring, and there's a kind of a soft breeze moving around. There's a harp at the base of one of these pillars. We realize that we are in the room of Corellin, and that is where we ended off. It was very intense and a very, very cool session. Thanks very much for sticking with me. We still have Paylor, this Corellin room, Bahamut, Moradin, the Raven Queen, and Ayun. There we go, and Ayun left to go. Love you guys. Session 72. 71 was a Adventures in Chlora side quest session. Session 72 happening Saturday, March, I think, 14th, or is whatever this Saturday is coming up. Normal time, normal place. Love you guys, and holy balls, we almost died. It was almost a TPK, and is it Saturday yet?
Thanks for listening to this installment of the Blackwater Archives covering the Vel Soom Arc. This will take you right into our streamed content that we had done on Twitch. That's all here on YouTube. Start with episode 0, and then you can work your way forward. If you like what you hear, come hang out with us on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/BlackwaterD&D. And we keep discussing lore on Mondays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Chatwater, where we also dive into our latest episodes in all their juicy glory. And remember, it's dangerous to go it alone these days, because you might end up crushed to death in an ancient tomb when really all you needed to do was kick down a door. Be safe!